When I first created this top, I wasn't sure I was ever going to do it again because of the time and the patience that goes into creating it. But then I posted it on Instagram and on TikTok, and you guys loved it so much. You kept requesting for a tutorial. So therefore, here is a tutorial for this top. Hello and welcome back to Ladensercrotchets. If you're new here, my name is Liz. Welcome to the family. Kindly subscribe if you're not subscribed. Like, share and comment on this video and on the other videos that are on this channel. I hope you're going to enjoy making this one as much as I did. I didn't know I could enjoy working with slip stitches, but after this top, I think I'll be doing more work with slip stitches. Let's get right into it. For this tutorial, I'll be using the same exact shades that I used on the other top. And then I'll be working with a 5mm crochet hook. And you're going to need a measuring tape. I'm using the 5mm crochet hook because working with a bigger hook is easier when you're doing slip stitches. So I would advise that you go for a hook that is more than 4mm in size. We're going to begin with a slip knot and a chain of 40. The chain 40 represents the length of the top that I want, that is measuring from the armpit up to the waist. If you want your top shorter, you may do 35. If you want it longer, you could do more than 40, like 45, but then 45 will be too long. So I'm starting with 40. Then as I do the slip knot, I need to leave a longer tail for the fringe, because I'll not be attaching the fringe afterwards. I'll work it as I go, so I'm leaving a longer tail. And the tail that I've left is around 8 inches, but I'm going to trim it down. I'm going to trim it down to around 5 to 6 inches. So then I'll chain 40. Don't be too tight with your stitches, because for slip stitches you need stitches that are not too tight. I've done my chain of 40 and I'm going to measure this without stretching, because it's the length and you don't measure length when stretching. And when I measure this, it gets me to around 10 inches. But with slip stitches, you might lose an inch or two. So if you want to do a length of 12, then I would advise that you chain up to a length of 14. If you want to do a length of 9, chain up to 11, because of that allowance of a reduction in the inches because of the slip stitches. Now we're going to begin the first row, and we begin by holding our 40th chain and chaining one more. Like I've mentioned, we are doing slip stitches, and so we're going to go into that chain that we were holding, put your hook through, grab a loop, and then you have 2 loops on your hook. Pass the second loop onto the first one, and that's our first slip stitch. Put your hook through the next chain, grab a loop, and go through the loop that was on the hook before. Make sure that your stitches are not tight. If you tighten the stitches, you're going to struggle to work the next row. Into the third, grab your loop and pull through. Into the fourth stitch, put your hook through, yarn over and grab a loop, and then pull through. And then into the next chain, grab your yarn and pull through. Notice how my stitches are not tight, but they are also not loose, because you don't want something that is too loose, because when it's too loose it will leave gaps. When it's too tight, it will be hard to work. So we're just going to work a slip stitch into every chain until we get to the end of row 1. At the end of row 1, we should have 40 slip stitches. Now if you've decided that you want your top shorter, like for the other one that I did, I had done 35, you can do 35 if you want it super cropped. That is cropped. If you want it super cropped, you could do that, but it also depends with the tension on your stitches. So now keep going with 1 slip stitch into every chain, and I'll meet you at the end. at this point. As long as the first one, and then you're going to cut off the yarn at that point. Then we'll pull through and fasten. Next we'll get the second color, or the second shade, which is navy blue. Now you can work with any other shades that are okay for you. You can even work with one shade, but if you're working with one shade, then that means you cannot attach the fringes as you go. You'll have to attach them at the end. So now I'm going to grab the navy blue and make sure that the tail that I'm leaving is almost the same length with whatever I have, and make a slip knot. Now this slip knot, that loop on the slip knot is going to be our very first stitch. So it counts as our first stitch. Then we're going to get the point where we've completed that first row at this point, and we're going to work in the back loop. So holding my work like this, not sure if this is visible enough. This is the back loop right here. So instead of working, this color and the lighting are not going so well, but I hope you can see the back loop right there. So these loops at the back, I'll put my hook through and pull it through that first loop. Like I've mentioned, this first loop that is created is our first slip stitch. Then we're going to do a second slip stitch into the next stitch in the back loop. In the back loop we do another slip stitch. So we just work in slip stitches, and we are working in the back loops. So remember, we are not working both loops, we're only working the back loops all through. Remember to ensure that the tension of your stitches is not too tight, but it should also not be too loose. So I'm just going to work one slip stitch into every stitch to the end. This is my last slip stitch, and make sure that you don't forget it, or make sure you don't miss out any stitch, and to ensure that you can count your stitches. So I'm done with row 3. So I'm going to chain 1 and turn to begin row 4. We begin row 4 in the first slip stitch, this one right here, in the back loop. And we're just going to work one slip stitch in the back loop of every stitch for a total of 40 slip stitches. So I'm in the last one. I'll do the slip stitch, chain 1, make sure that my tail is the same length as the others, and cut, then pull and fasten. Again, we're going to attach the next yarn. I'm going to attach this shade that I started with. I'll reattach it and do the same thing that I've done with the navy blue. Make sure that the tail is almost the same length and do a slip knot. Remember, I mentioned the slip knot is a stitch. Grab where you ended and into the back loop, put your hook through, then grab a loop and pull it through. That's our first slip stitch, and then we're going to do a slip stitch into the back loop of each stitch to the end. And then when we get to the end, we'll chain 1 and turn and work the next row back to these points, then cut off the yarn. I'll meet you at these ends as we reattach the next color. I'm done with that, and it's time to reattach the next color. Let me show you the point where I'm at. So at this point, I've already done, it's on this side. So I've done the first, the second, and the third color. So now we're going to do the fourth, but then there's going to be an extension in order to get the sleeve part, or in order to create the sleeve of the top. So we'll get to this point, then increase with some chains. I'm working with this shade of blue next, and I've already done the slip knot. So I'll get the ending point, then in the back loop, as usual. Remember, the loop on the hook is our first slip stitch. So in the first back loop right here, grab your yarn and pull it through the first loop. Then in the back loop of the next one, like we've done in the previous rows, and I'll do a slip stitch till I get to this point, and then I'll meet you at this point so that I can show you how to increase to create the sleeve of the top. This part is standard for all sizes, regardless of the size you are. That is the same number of rows that you're going to do. So I'm at that end, and we're going to do a chain of 25. Do 25 chains from here. 1, 2. So that creates the sleeve of the top. Holding that last chain, chain 1, and go into that chain that you're holding, do a slip stitch, and then we're going to do a slip stitch all the way down to the end. At the end, you should have 65 slip stitches, because 40 plus 25 is 65. I'll meet you at the end. I'm done with the light blue, and so next I'm going to get the navy blue and reattach it, and then I'll work all the way to the top and then come all the way down. And I'm going to do this with, this will be, I'll count this as my first, like, let me show you. So I'm counting this as the first, the second, the third, and the fourth. So counting from the light blue one, I'll do 10 of them, 10 rows. They're actually not 10, they'll be 10 times 2, which is 20. But because I'm counting in terms of the shades, I'll do 10 shades. So 1, then another 9. Now after the navy blue, I'll do the blue. Let me show you with the other top. So I've started with the light blue, then navy blue, light blue. I'll do off-white, cream, off-white. Then I'll just keep alternating like that. And I'll come back after I'm done with 10 shades to show you what to do next. I'm done with the 10 colors like I mentioned. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I'm in the 11th one. Now for the 11th one, we're going to extend to create the polo neck. We are this part right here. So I'm going to do an extension, and I'll do 12 chains in order to achieve this part of the neck. So 12 from this point. Then I'll hold the 12th chain and chain one more, go into that chain that I'm holding and do a slip stitch. Then I'm going to do a slip stitch all the way down. When I get to the end, I'll cut off the yarn and then I'll reattach the next one. This is what I have after that extension, and now I'm going to reattach this darker shade of green, and I'll work a row that goes up to this point. Now in this middle part, or in this part of the neck, we're going to double the number of rows we did here. If you are done 15 right here, you're going to do 30. If you are done 12, you'll do 24. If you are done, say, 13, you'll do 26. Now because I had done 10, I'll do 20 in this part, and because I've already done one, I'll do 19 more. So my next color is this shade. As usual, you're measuring to make sure that the tail is almost the same length with the, it doesn't have to be exactly the same length because we're going to trim them off. So now begin with the first slip stitch in the first stitch in the back loop. Then we move into the next back loop, and we keep going till you go all the way up, then come down and cut off the yarn, and you'll reattach the other shades that you're working with. I'll be back once I'm done with the 20 rows. After the 20 rows of the neck part, these ones right here, they're actually not 20, they are 40, but like I mentioned, I'm counting the shades. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Next, we're going to count 12 stitches from the top up to this point, because we want to go back to this on this other side. So it's like it's a mirror reflection of whatever we have on this side. So we're going to reduce 12 stitches. We'll have an extension right here of 10. Then after the 10 rows, we're going to reduce the 25 rows, the 25 stitches that we added, so that we mirror this part on the other side. Let me show you. Let me get my stitch marker. Then I'm counting 12 stitches. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, and 12. So I'll mark the 12th stitch. Now I'm going to reattach the yarn, the next color, from this side. You have to make sure that the tail is almost the same length with the others. Then make a slip knot. Remember that's our first slip stitch. Then get the beginning part. And reattach. And we do the slip stitches. Do a slip stitch, 1 into every stitch, until you get to the stitch before the stitch marker. At the stitch before the stitch marker, so I don't need the stitch marker anymore, so I'll just pull it out. But then I'll not continue to the end. I'll chain 1 and turn. Then begin in the first stitch with a slip stitch. Then do a slip stitch all the way down. When you get to the end, you're going to cut off the yarn, leaving a long tail for the fringe. After you get to the end, you will continue reattaching the shades until you have 10 shades done, or 12 or 15. It depends with how many you are done on this side. So if you are done 10 like me, you'll do 10 on the other side. If you are done 12, you'll do 12. If you are done 15, you'll do 15, and so on. So keep going. I'll do my 10 shades, and then I'll come back so that we can continue to the last part of the first part of the top, or the first. This is one panel, like the front or the back. They are identical, so it doesn't matter. This could be the front, it could be the back panel. But once we are done with this part, we'll just do the last part, which is only 3 shades, and we'll be done with one of the panels. After the 10 shades, this is what I have. And now we're going to reduce. The number of stitches that we had here was 25 and these ones were 40. So I'll reattach the yarn and I'll work until I get to 40 slip stitches so that we can have this part on this other side right here. I'm working with navy blue right now. So get the yarn, make sure the length of the tail that you leave is almost the same as that other one. Make a slip knot at that point. Then reattach the yarn. So that's the first slip stitch. We're going to count 40. If you had started with 40, you will have 40. If you had started with 35, then you will do 35. So those are the 40 slip stitches, and we're going to chain 1 and turn. Then again do 1 slip stitch into every stitch till we get to the bottom part of the top. And then we're going to do 2 more shades. So this is the first one. We'll do 2 more so that we get 3 like on this other side. I'm done with the 3 shades. That's 1, 2, and 3, and done with one of the panels. So this could be the front or the back panel. They are both identical. So now after this, you're going to make another panel like this one. Then I'll meet you once I'm done with mine to show you how to do to join the 2 panels together. Now the measurements of this top are, we are measuring at this point. It's at 11.5 when not stretched. When you multiply 11.5 times 2, we get 23. So this top can fit somebody with a bust of 23. But then when we stretch, we give this a stretch. Even when we've not stretched it out so much, it's going up to 34, to 17 actually. It's going up to 17, and 17 multiplied by 2 is 34. That means this top can fit someone with a bust between 23 to 34. So if your bust is between 23 to 34, even 36 can fit into this. Then you can work with these measurements that I've used. So go on, make another panel like this one, then I'll meet you so that we can join them. I have the 2 identical pieces ready, as you can see. And now it's time to connect them. To do that, you're going to take the first panel, determine the wrong side. This is my wrong side. So I'm going to place one of the panels with the wrong side facing down like that. This is the right side. Then I'll get the other panel, determine the wrong and the right side. So this is the right side. Then I'll place the 2 right sides facing each other like this. So that you have one wrong side on this side, on the bottom, and the other wrong side on top. Then we're going to connect the 2 panels. Now to do that, I'm going to connect using the navy blue because I have the peach and the peach on the other side. So I'll get the navy blue and reattach it on this panel that is on top. Yeah, on this stitch right here. Just the same way I've been doing with the other rows. I'll do a slip stitch, then reattach the yarn right here and do a row till I get to the top. So I'm at the last stitch right there. I'll chain one and then I'll turn, and when I'm turning I'll turn both panels so that I can start connecting them. Turn like this, grab the two panels together. I'll start with in the first stitch in the back loop, then I'll get a stitch, the first stitch on the other side, and join them with a slip stitch. So on the other side I'm working on both loops, then the next back loop on this side and the next stitch on the other side on both loops, do a slip stitch into the third one. From this side we are working the back loop, from the other side we are doing both loops, and we're just going to join the corresponding stitches all the way down. So I'm in the last stitch and I'm just going to join right there. Then I'll chain one and cut the yarn, leaving the same length of tail, pull through and fasten. And we don't need to cut that off. That side is joined, as you can see. So we move on to the other side and join it the same way we've done. So what you do is turn your work. So this was a starting row. This was an ending row. So we reattach the yarn here. I'll still use the navy blue. So begin with a slip knot, leaving a long tail that is the same length with the other ones. Then you'll need to reattach on the first stitch, and you're going to do this row the same way we've done on the other side. I have the other side joined, and as you can see, you can't even tell this is where we joined. From the right side, this is what we have. I actually feel like you can wear this top on both sides. You can wear it with this side in, you can wear it with this other side, whichever side you choose. Now it's time to join these two parts, this part and this other part. So what we do is turn to the other side. At this point, I think I'll join with this shade of green. I've gotten the darker shade of green. I'll start with a slip knot and then get this side that has the light green, reattach the yarn on the first stitch, and I'm going to attach these two sides using a slip stitch, not a slip stitch but a single crochet, so that I can have stitches where I can weave in the tails, because it's not easy to weave in tails on slip stitches. So I'll reattach this point with single crochets. So just go into the first stitch of one side and the first stitch on the other side. We start with slip stitching, tighten that, chain one, go into the same stitch and do a single crochet. Single crochet is put your hook into the stitch, grab a loop, have two loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the both of them into the next one, the second stitch and the stitch on the other side, do a single crochet, then grab a loop on this side, two loops on the other side, complete a single crochet, and loop on this side and two loops on the other side and do a single crochet. And you're going to do a single crochet till you get to this corner right here. Then we'll continue. The reason, like I've mentioned, the reason why I'm using single crochets is because at this point we'll need to weave in these tails, and then weaving in tails into slip stitches it's not going to be well hidden, so that's why I'm using single crochets. I'm at the corner. Now we join the rows. Each of the colors has two rows, but when I'm joining, I'll only join with one stitch into every row. So this green row, connect it to the other green row on the other side with a single crochet. The next is the brown right here with a single crochet. Then the maroon row, go into one loop on this side and the other loop on the other side. Complete a single crochet, then the brown, and continue to the end. In the last row, go into both loops just to ensure that you secure that part. Then chain one, then cut off the yarn, leaving a tail that you're going to weave in, and that part is joined. This is what we're going to have. Now you're going to reattach the yarn on the other side and connect this part just like we've connected this other part. After joining this other side, we weave in the tails. So I've gotten my darning needle, put the tail through or the end and weave inside the stitches. Like I mentioned, it's easier to weave if you're weaving in single crochets as compared to weaving in slip stitches. Then you can cut off whatever remains. After weaving in the tail, we are done. Now what's remaining is to trim the fringe to your desired length. Turn your top to the right side. You can wear this top on either side. Either side can be the front or the back of the top. So that's what we have. We have the fringe right here. You're going to decide the length of the fringe that you want, and then you'll trim the other parts. And with that, we are done with this tutorial. Thank you so much if you stuck around to the end of the tutorial. If you've enjoyed it, kindly leave a like, a comment. Please share with your friends. If you're not subscribed, kindly subscribe. Go follow me on my other social media pages, that is TikTok and Instagram at ladensercrotchets, and let's see each other in the next tutorial.